soul, I want to be free to fly away and sing to the world about my soul. Serenade, my soul serenade. When you're not around, there's a lonely sound in my soul serenade, in my soul serenade. Everyone but you adores me, but oh, do you know pretty soon they bore me. Let me tell you right now that they bore me. They bore me with their pretty little words, those pretty little words of devotion. But oh, let me tell you right now, my message to them this evening is they can jump in anybody's ocean, because only you hear my soul serenade, my soul serenade, oh, my soul serenade.
We are going to move from a resilience to a natural brilliant state.
We're all here to move our Black communities forward.
I think our children have to have the best. It's all about discipline.
How are we going to discipline ourselves so that we're able to save, so that we're able to make good financial decisions?
Recognizing that there's a road ahead if you manage the road in front of you.
The decisions that you're going to be making today in your lives where it comes to money will affect you in the future.
Discipline is one of the things that we often learn, sometimes by our environment, or sometimes we're forced to do it, and sometimes we don't learn it at all.
Stores want to get us in and out and get our money, and that's it. It's a game, so you have to be really wise to the game.
Do you know what it costs to run your home on a monthly basis?
As we gather together here as family and friends, we acknowledge this sacred land on which we reside. It has been the site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this place is still the home of many indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of the broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with our relations. We also acknowledge people of African descent who were brought here against their will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Thank you.
This webinar provides illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Black Business and Professional Association. The BBPA makes no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use or reference to or lines on such material.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the BBPA's community space. My name is Tika Pinnock and I will be your host for our special edition celebrating Mother's Day today. A few housekeeping items before we introduce our guests. Please note that this video is being recorded, so for privacy issues, if you wish, you may turn your camera off unless you are going to ask a question at some point later. We do ask you to remain on mute during our conversation, just so we can focus on our guests. Please note that you may ask questions in the chat. It is being moderated, and at the end of our discussion, there will be time and space for you to ask questions. So welcome again, and thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday morning. Our topic is motherhood and money, but of course our conversation with our three amazing and very accomplished guests will cover so much more than money. Today we are joined by Nadine Spencer, Crystal Abotaswe, and Dr. Wendy Sukiye.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Great, we're just waiting on.
And I see Crystal. Hi, Crystal. So
hey, good
morning.
morning. Hope you guys are well.
Thank you.
And is Wendy with us?
I don't see. Maybe she's having a little. I don't see Wendy yet, but I know Wendy, she will be here.
She will be here. Okay. Yes. Well, perhaps I will share your bios in the meantime, because you're very accomplished women. And I apologize that, what I will share will not do you justice, because we don't have enough time to go through all of your accomplishments, but certainly no stranger to the space is Nadine Spencer. Nadine is the CEO of Brand EQ Group Inc., a global marketing and communications agency specializing in marketing, communications, and public relations. Nadine has earned a reputation as an experienced professional who accelerates strategic growth and brand visibility for her clients. Through her coined People Matter concept, she has expanded market growth and increased revenues for various multinational enterprises by amplifying their messages to a wider audience. Nadine has redefined every leadership position she's held while simultaneously playing a philanthropic role across various communities. She has founded and led multiple successful businesses and served as CEO and president of both corporate and nonprofit boards. Charitable activities include the A Supreme Foundation, the Junior League of Toronto, YWCA Montreal, Scarborough Women's Center, the Lifelong Leadership Institute, the Jane Finch Pan Am Games, and the Accelerating Women Entrepreneurs. And of course, she's the current president of the Black Business and Professional Association and director both on the York University Alumni Board and the Lifelong Leadership Institute Board. Crystal Abotaswe is from the Ondek Omni Canning First Nations and Chippewas of Rama First Nations. She is an urban Ojibwe Anishinaabe Cree. Crystal is a well sought after expert, speaker, and leader on Indigenous engagement, and a senior manager at TD Bank. She's responsible for TD's Indigenous Peoples Strategy. As president of the Indigenous Professional Association of Canada, she's helping to redefine the agenda and identify new measures for advancing the opportunities for and the capabilities of Canada's Indigenous peoples. So welcome again to the both of you, and thank you for joining us. Perhaps what I'm hoping we'll have is just a very informal and casual conversation about motherhood and money, recognizing that some of us are mothers and others are other mothers. And we're all in this large village helping to parent other folks in our professional lives and our personal lives. to kick us off, what did your mother teach you about money? What did she tell you about money? And maybe you could go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start. And it's interesting because, I have 2 daughters, but yet I have many children. When I think about the work that we do in community, and I'm sure Crystal can relate, and she's very young, so she'd be a very, very young mother. But I think just by the nature of the work that we do, we do parent in our leadership roles in many different ways. So my mother, I'm the 13th of 14 children, right? And so my mother was an entrepreneur. She owned 3 grocery stores. And I think a lot of who I am as a businesswoman is just seeing my mother and seeing her resilience. And a lot of what I know and learn about business comes from my mother. And I'll share one quick story at the top of this. When I remembered many years ago, I owned a food company, and during a certain time, there was a recession and no one was buying anything. And I thought about my mother's advice to me in business. She says, Nadine, you can always give good people credit. It's better you trust the goods, meaning, it's better you give credit than let the goods spoil. And I remember calling all the specialty stores. I called Pusatiri's. I called all the unique specialty stores. And I said to them, I'm going to let you have my goods on consignment, because the stores weren't buying because they didn't have the money to buy anyway. And I had the goods that I was paying to keep at a warehouse. So I consigned the product to 60 stores across Ontario. And I put the product in and I demoed the product. And I told the stores that when they sell it, then they can pay me. And, every single store, not only did they sell the product, they paid me and they offered more, and my product didn't spoil. So, that was one of the big lessons in business that I learned from my mother. Until today, it keeps me viable as an entrepreneur.
Fantastic. Crystal.
Can you guys hear me okay? I think, yeah,
Yes,
okay, perfect.
yes.
Okay. So my story is really unique in the sense that I think I really helped my mom with financial responsibilities and accountabilities at a very, very young age. I grew up on, well, we grew up, I'm the middle child. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And we grew up on she's a single mom. And we grew up on Ontario Disability Support Program, so ODSP. And, I remember when we were really young, like we were at a grocery store, and I was the younger sister. My sister was, took on a lot of responsibility, and we were putting everything in the cart, like cereals, and again, we only went shopping for groceries once a month. And I remember like asking my mom for all the sugary treats, like, Mom, can I get this? Mom, can I get that? And she was going, yeah, you can, but like not really calculating how much it would cost when we went to go check out. And when we did, like, I remember we only had, I think, a certain amount of money for groceries. And then I remember we had to put things back. So we were, my mom was like, okay, well, I only have, like $100. So let's think about the essentials that we need, like milk, bread, and then maybe we can't get the cereal that you wanted, Crystal, and we can't get the sweets. So I think I might have been around like 5 or 6, maybe 7 at the time when this happened, but it was just a lesson around, and my sister really took, I think, I can't take, it's her story to tell, but I remember, her being very more responsible, and like, you can't get everything at the store. And I think that was my first lesson around money and the importance of it, and that, it's not finite, and budgets. So I think, that story is really, stuck with me into my adulthood. And even as a teenager, I think every time I took an opportunity to sell, I used to sell chocolates door to door, chocolate covered almonds. And I think I would just constantly save because of that memory. And I think it's, financial literacy is such an important topic for so many of us, and it's not something that's taught in school, or sometimes even in parenting, it's not taught, the importance of money and how to save, and what does that all mean in terms of being financially healthy. So I'm really excited to be talking about that today with the group, and I think that's something that to start. The lessons really is around, budgeting and making sure that you understand that, money is not finite, and that you have to plan for the future and the essentials.
No, and thank you for sharing that, Crystal. And, you've got me thinking, One of the things that my mother always said to me, and one of her hopes for me, was that I would not struggle. And she'd say that all the time, I'm investing in your education because I want you to do financially better than I,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to plan my life to leave something for you, an inheritance for you, so you don't have to struggle. How have your sort of childhood lessons informed and shaped your professions and how you've gone about your profession, your professional life and your personal life?
Mhm. I guess I can start. I think something that was really pivotal to me is I got into banking at the age of 18 years old, and not knowing a lot about banks, the financial industry at all, really shaped how I thought about money. And what did it mean to have a mortgage? What was a credit line? What are RSPs? What's a tax-free savings account? And so, you know, just all the flooding of kind of information at a young age, I think really set me up for success into my future financial career goals and plans. And I think, it'd be interesting. I was a teller for a bit, and then I became a financial service representative. And I remember, every once in a while, someone would come in that was a lot older than me, and they would kind of make a comment like, well, "What do you know about a mortgage?" Or "What do you know about family responsibilities?" And at the time, I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't really understand what they were saying when they were saying that to me. But I think really, it resonates with me now because I would see customers come in, and it would be interesting. Like, I'd see someone come in with, they would have, they'd have a Porsche. They drive in a Porsche. They would have like Louis Vuitton, all the brand names on them, lots of gold chains, diamonds. And then I would, open their account and, completely in debt, lots of credit cards, payments overdue, not a lot in savings and or no savings at all, and then just a bit in checkings. Meanwhile, then I would have another client come in that would have they'd have a hole in their sweater, jeans that looked like they were 30 years old, and they'd be millionaires. And I think that also gave me a lesson in terms of, not to perceive people based on what they look like and or what you think people may have, because everyone's journey is different. But I think getting into the financial industry and then also watching people and managing people's money and their financial health, I got a good understanding of what the system really means and how to navigate it so that you're making the right decisions, because that spiral hole of debt, it's really, really hard to climb out of. So it's really important at a young age to learn the essentials of financial literacy so that you don't find yourself, spiraling out of control later on in life, because it's extremely difficult to get out once you're in it.
Any thoughts on your end, Nadine?
Yeah, those were absolutely great points, Crystal. One of the things that, I learned from a very early age, and again, from my mom, was to budget, and of course, as you go through many different cycles in life, you forget those lessons, but I do always go back to them. And what I knew about money and savings, my mom always said, you have to do set a budget and you have to save. And the first concept of savings that I knew was partner. My mother always throw these partners, which, every week somebody, puts money in and then one person gets the $1,000 draw, and then you keep cycling money into this community type of savings pool. And that's what I knew about savings from a very, very early age. So I recognize that, in order to build and save for what you want, whether it's a mortgage or, a vacation, you had to save. But I remember I'd go through the grocery store and I would just sort of pick things up and just throw it in the cart. And my mom says, you know what, Nadine, maybe you have $1,000 to spend on groceries, but you should still budget that money. You shouldn't just pick up things and put it in the cart. You should allocate, whether it's $500 or $200, whatever that number is. And it's a continuous training of your action, the discipline in savings, and that mindset. And so that's been a part of how I've managed even my business. You know, when we have a sale, we block out areas of, you know, this is for payroll, this is for that, that's for so much, but we always leave, you know, a reserve for savings. And again, that comes from just lessons learned.
Yes. So I think a lesson here is live below your means. You can be a millionaire and not always look like it, and have a reserve both for your business and sort of your personal life.
Yeah.
And if we could shift gears a little bit, because I think education is very much tied to or earning potential. And we are, you know, we're racialized women sort of in this space. And we know that education is not the great equalizer for racialized women and immigrant women. Black and Indigenous women still earn less than white men, and still earn less than white women. And so what are your thoughts on sort of how can we leverage? So Black and Indigenous women are getting, you know, higher education, but not necessarily seeing the return on investment in the marketplace. And as folks who also work in diversity, what are some of your reflections on how we can really start to tackle that issue? And some of your lessons for young women who are currently pursuing education and thinking about what to do when they enter the job market?
Yeah. That's a really great question. I guess I'll start, and then Nadine, you can go. When I think about that, I absolutely agree with you, and it really resonates with me. I think when I started off in the job market, I was severely underpaid, being racialized, but also being a youth. And you know, not having, and again, I don't want to have that millennial mindset of just like, you have to work your way up. I completely understand that, but I also think like this promise of, you know, once you graduate university, because everyone's like society, you know, the village is pushing you to get, you know, degrees because, you know, when I was going to school, college wasn't enough, and or, you know, having your just your high school wasn't enough, you know, your GED wasn't enough. And we have a lot of bridging programs so that we can get post-secondary schooling at some point. And for my community, and like even my sister was, you know, a teenage mom. She had her first baby at 16. It was really hard. It was a struggle for her. And so when I kind of reflect back on that, I think for Indigenous youth and Black youth and anyone that's in the racialized groups is that we need to show up and we need to negotiate when it comes to job offers. And I think back in the day, historically, you know, men would say, you know, they would be the breadwinners of the family, and they would say, I have a family to raise, I have a wife at home and kids. And, you know, that conversation was, you know, allowable and permissible in the corporate world because that was the standard. And I think, you know, we should show up and say the realities of our lives is that we may be single moms and we may be the only one contributing to the household. And it's okay, because sometimes I think we don't, you know, and it's corporations too in their culture and this Western viewpoint that, you know, oh, that's, you know, we don't talk about your personal stuff like that. But I'm like, no, you absolutely should, because men do. And to know our worth is also very important. So we need to, like, you know, level set and have these networks like today on the call, like, please reach out to me if you're going into a conversation around negotiation. I can help. We could do a mock conversation so that you're set up for success when you go into that. I didn't have any relatives. You know, I'm the first in my family to get a post-secondary degree. I'm the first in my family to get a master's. And I'm the first in my family to go into a corporate industry. So in the financial industry, more specifically. So, you know, navigating negotiation of contracts, knowing that I could ask more, and that, you know, corporations and a lot of organizations do expect sometimes a bit of negotiation at the start. These are things I didn't know. And I missed out on opportunities in my younger years because I wouldn't negotiate. I would be like, oh, here's an offer. That's great. And I would take it. And most women do that, whereas men will negotiate. And so I think it's important just to have that in the back of your mind and know that, you know, don't come to that conversation thinking, ooh, I feel embarrassed to ask for more, or there's this shame for doing that, or that we should just be thankful for what we get. Like, absolutely not. Like, you are you are valued in an organization, your creativity, all that hard work you put into your education, all that volunteerism that you do, it all matters and it makes you very employable. So don't just stick to the status quo of what, you know, one organization will offer you. Ask for more and show up for more, and you'll get it.
Yeah, excellent points. As you all know, we run a weekly program called the BBPA Boss Woman Entrepreneurship Training Program. And each week, a lot of women, we get together and we talk about money, we talk about finance, we talk about all the tools needed for entrepreneurial success. But one of the things I notice with women that I mentor, and if I could do the test, for a lot of individuals, we run a business or we sell a product or services. And when you ask a woman, what is your day rate? What do you charge? We sort of have this deer in the headlight look, like we don't know our value. We don't know how to ask for our value. We don't know how to get our worth. And it's because of the uncomfortable conversation around money, especially in a professional environment. As Crystal says, when you're presented an offer, you can negotiate that offer. The thing with men is that when they have an offer presented, they want more. But as women, we look and we think, are we really worth this? Or maybe, when we're negotiating, we actually will take less. I mean, one of the very early experiences I've had with negotiating, I was getting I had a job offer, and I went to a colleague of mine, and this is where mentorship and the role of mentors is really great. And I said to her, this is what the offer is. And she said, no, Nadine, the offer, it should be 2.5 times what they're presenting. Then I went back and I asked for that. And I was, in my stomach, I was a little bit afraid to do that, but I asked and I got it. Oprah has this wonderful expression. She says, life will give you what you ask of it. And what we as women need to recognize is our value and know your worth and have your number. Have your number. When someone says, what is your day rate, Tika? You should be able to say, my day rate is X immediately. And not that we will not give a consideration depending on the organization for that day, for that rate, but we have to have that as a standard and not be afraid to stand with that, with our number. And, so how do we do that more and more? We have the education, we have the experience, but we're still not there. When we look at the amount of women, Black women on corporate boards versus the number of individuals that represent on different boards. Again, it's not just the money, but it's the position, it's being at the table. It's all the areas that we need to show up and demand and ask for what we should have and know our worth.
Yes, thank you. And both of you, hit on two things that I want to go back to. And I think some of this is the imposter syndrome. We are the only one or one of few in a space, and we automatically have this subconscious thinking that we're not supposed to be in that space. And if we ask for more, then we're somehow going to lose out on the opportunity that we have. Like, how do we really combat that and address it? And Nadine, you mentioned something about mentorship. And I'd like us to talk a little bit more about that. How do we seek out mentors, and how do we really make good use of them?
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk about mentorship and allyship and sponsorship, which is the queen pin of relationship building. I've had many mentors in my life, and a lot of who I am, I can call out some names of incredible women and men that have mentored me through that showed me the way. And one story that I have is I was president of the Junior League of Toronto, and the Junior League of Toronto is a 100-year-old organization that works to promote and develop women in the areas of volunteership and building women as civic leaders. And I was the second Black woman to be president in this 100-year-old organization. And I remembered when I got there, here it is, we have a lot of women from Rosedale, they certainly didn't look like me. I was quite a minority in the group, but I had one woman, Ella Landegger. I will forever have a great deal of gratitude for this woman. And I remembered when I got there, I put in the first year, year I wanted to be president. She says, well, Nadine, you know, I see you're very ambitious, which is a wonderful quality. However, what you may not know is that in order to be president, not just of this organization, but of any organization, there's a grid, there's a metrics, and you need to be able to, you know, check off a lot of boxes in those. And she looked at my resume and she said, this is where you're strong and this is where you need to build and this is what you have to do. So that was the mentorship. But further to that, she became my sponsor. She literally took me by the hand. I remembered her walking me into the Rosedale Golf and Country Club and in introducing me to all the women, all the power women who would be able to have influence and impact and open doors for me. You know, open doors for me. So I think that's part of the piece as leaders, as mothers, as women that we need to do is when we're in a space. When we're in a space and we see others around the table. And, you know, that's one of the things I admire about Crystal. We sit at on the alumni board at York University together, but I remembered after one meeting, you know, she came up to me and she said, you know what, Nadine, I work in the diversity equity space at TD. And, you know, we're looking for talent, we're looking for Black talent. And we would like, you know, and if you have anyone that you want to put forward, please do not hesitate to let me know. That's what we need to do, you know, as leaders, as women, is when you look around a table and you see something missing, or you see someone that can help to fill a gap, we need to reach out and make those connections and authentically, you know, bring people in. And that's, you know, why mentorship's important. And then of course, allyship, which is to bring partners, others to the table and introduce you and open your network to other people. And of course, the one that I champion the absolute most is sponsorship.
Great, fantastic. Thank you. Crystal, any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with Nadine, and you know, it's so important that, and I think, you know, I can reflect on my experiences navigating the corporate world. I had a lot of people vouch for me, sponsor me, and also mentor me into the roles that I've been able to attain. But I think it's a mix of, you know, and it's funny, Nadine, you said something that really resonated with me is, I always get said, like, people always say, you're very ambitious, Crystal, you're very ambitious, Crystal. Slow down, Crystal, because I'm always like in a hurry just to, like, you know, create change and create impact. And, you know, I also, you know, want to be a leader one day and have that impact and influence. So I think, you know, part of it is you yourself have a lot of self-efficacy to really go for your goals and dreams. And, you know, you first and foremost have to be your own cheerleader, because I know, you know, there are people that will be in your corner, but you have to believe in what you want and your dreams. And you absolutely have to, you know that you can do it. And then once you start to articulate what it is that you want sponsors to your mentor, I'm a living example of that. So I think that's first and foremost. A lot of people will help you on that, on your journey. And again, you have to ask. I think for a long period of time, I was trying to do it on my own. And, you know, it does take a village. It does take a lot of people to be in your corner, to give you their wisdom of how they navigated through the roles and opportunities that they've had and the positions they've obtained. And yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it is about your networks. So I, you know, in my early 20s, I made an admission to add people to LinkedIn, to try to go to, like, to have at least a coffee chat, 1 or 2 coffee chats a week, people outside my industry, people older than me, people mid-career, just to get a sense of, you know, their journeys, what things they had to do. And that really builds a foundation of strategy for you on how you're going to navigate. And you have to put in that work as much as, you know, you put in work into your relationships, into the things that you want, the goals that you have. The same has to be done when you think about your career, and having smart goals, right? Because a year will go and then another year will go and then it'll be 5 years, 10 years. And so you have to be very cognizant that, you know, in a year, a lot can be accomplished, and you have to be working towards something always to get to that next level and to that next step. So that's kind of one thing I put to the group to just kind of, you know, be mindful of. And yeah, I'll pause there, but I think mentorship and job sponsorship equally important, and you should be seeking both of those throughout your career. Networks, again, will get you places in a sense of knowing what's even out there, right? And then you have to be constantly articulating, communicating what it is that you want to people. And it doesn't matter who it is, because, serendipitous moments happen all the time. It's not random. Nadine remembered me from York, and then Nadine's like, hey, Crystal, come do this with me. And then something will happen now that me and Nadine have connected again, because that was maybe 2 years ago, Nadine.
Yeah.
Something will happen in another 3 years, and I'll be like, there's this opportunity that I just saw that someone told me. I'm going to tell Nadine because I know her and we've connected. These things happen all the time. And they happen more so than, just putting out a job into the universe. It's your network that tell you those opportunities. So just know that it's very, very important, need it to progress in anything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Wendy's here, but I do want to just comment on 2 points that Crystal said. Number one, I say this all the time. People do business with who they know.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about all the opportunities that I've had in my life in business, it's because someone said, hey, Nadine is that person that you need to do that, huge opportunities. And that's one. And two, the whole art of relationship building and networking and, getting mentors and sponsors and allies, it's you don't just sit down and someone just shows up on your doorstep. You really have to make the effort to go out there, extend your hand, extend yourself, have a conversation. And I know that takes confidence, but it's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the more you use it, it just becomes like an easy thing. I mean, I wish I had that same mantra and belief into my exercise routine and my diet, but into the networking thing, I've got that down pat.
No, great. Dr. Wendy Sukie is with us now, so we're just going to allow her to come up. Good morning. How are you? I think you're on mute.
Where's the sign?
I am so sorry, and I thought we were starting at noon, so I was sending notes saying, what are we going to talk about? And
that's okay.
apologize.
It is a Saturday morning, and I think for Saturday's release start at noon. So thank you for joining us. And we were just talking about building networks and mentorship. And a question that I want to ask as a follow-up to that, actually it's from one of our participants. They said, thank you very much. This is a great conversation thus far. What they're hearing is the need for genuine confidence in skills and expertise. And do you have any tips on how women can build and affirm themselves as they go out into the professional space? Thank you, Sylvia, for that question.
It's funny because I'm always torn with this question, because building on what I caught from the previous discussion, there is no doubt that, especially for women, and I'm sure it's worse for racialized women, who you know is more important than what you know. However, what you know is still important. And so, I think that, and Nadine and I have talked about this a lot, trying to find that balance between putting too much emphasis on formal education, formal training, formal knowledge, which often is used to exclude people, because frankly, you don't need an MBA. I can teach you everything I learned in my MBA, or at least everything I remember from my MBA, in a couple of weeks. And, we've developed programs to do that, so that often the traditional pathways of formal education have not been available for everybody. And to say, you need an MBA to go into business, which means you have to have spent a lot of years of formal education, a lot of money, and frankly, a lot of waste of time, is not helpful. At the same time, the research is pretty clear. The more formal education you have, the more you invest in yourself and in training, the more successful you will be. So the thing that I'm really interested in, and I know that Nadine's equally committed to, is trying to find how to bridge those divides. So look at where people are when they're starting, recognize that depending on people's life experience and so on, you have a really different set of assets that you're beginning with. And the first one is confidence. And, you know, I talk about this all the time. When I think about the opportunities that my daughter had with two very educated parents who both spoke English, who had all the money in the world to invest in her education, to encourage her, to tell her that she was awesome, 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 to get her tutors, to get her everything she needed to be successful. Compared to my own experience, you know, my father died when I was just before my 10th birthday. My mother was a medical secretary. I didn't know what an engineer was until I had a master's degree and was working with them. Like, I had no clue about a lot of the fundamentals that I have seen play such an important role in my daughter's personal and professional success. So trying to figure out how to provide people with the social capital that they need to understand where the opportunities are and how to navigate them, but actually recognizing as well that you can only get so far on, you know, social media and marketing and presentation skills. There are some fundamental things that you have to actually learn about business or buy, right? So I'm kind of hopeless when it comes to finance and accounting. I was laughing when I saw the title of the session because it's do what I say, not what I do. But I'm really an accountant because I know the financial stuff is super, super important. What I'm really good at is writing proposals. So I'm really good at figuring out where money is and how to get it. I'm just not so good at figuring out what to do with it once I've got it. But I recognize that. So in my team, I have people who spend, you know, day and night looking at the budgets and the accountability and making sure that we're not overspending here, and we're doing some kind of cost accounting so we know that this project is not eating the resources for that project. But I do think that it's a balance. And I would say, and you know, others may disagree with me, but I think the first step is the intentionality and the confidence. You know, it's the one thing, it's one of the things that I definitely got from my parents, which was the idea that I could do what anybody else could do. And so, as I said, I didn't know what an engineer was. I didn't know what an MBA was. I didn't know there were jobs in government. I didn't know anything. My sort of educational trajectory was just driven by the fact I was the smartest kid in the class, and I had teachers who would say, you should do this, you should do that. But I remember really clearly, I got a job at $100 a week working for the Ontario government through some, you know, program aimed at helping people with non-traditional backgrounds get work experience. It was work integrated learning before we called things work integrated learning. I had a master's degree in medieval history because that was what I'd been interested in. And I thought I was going to do a PhD in history. Realized that I couldn't learn Latin, so I wasn't doing a PhD in medieval history. So I'm working in the provincial government. I got hired because the engineer who was doing, he was an economist who was doing the hiring, was married to a history major. So even though the whole team was engineers and economists, he was married to a history major, and he knew that history majors usually could write. So he hired me on spec. Again, it was not a rational decision. It was not an objective decision. It wasn't a decision based on who I knew. It was a decision based on who he knew. So I'm working with all these engineers and economists. And one day we were going to go play baseball because we did stuff like that. The guy I was sitting with said, oh, we can't come, we're studying for our GMAT. And I said, what's the GMAT? And they said, the GMAT is the test you take in order to get into an MBA. And I said, what's an MBA? And they explained what an MBA was. And I swear to God, what I did was I looked at one of them, I looked at the other one. One was an engineer, one was an economist. And I thought to myself, if they can do it, how hard can it be?
Yeah.
Right? And so I just went for it. And the ironic thing is I blew the lid off the test. One of the other guys who retired recently as an assistant deputy minister in government never made it through the test, never got an MBA. But you know, that was my parents' gift to me. I didn't have the social capital, I didn't have a lot of the knowledge, but I had the confidence. And so we have to start by building people's confidence so that women start going, if they can do it, how hard can it be?
Yes,
But
yes.
then we also need to provide support to find the path, because I was completely dependent on other people explaining what an MBA was, what a GMAT was, and so on. And I think that where we could do a much better job is helping people figure out what their interests are, what their skills are, where the gaps are, and what the potential pathways are. Because maybe some people only need a workshop from BDC in financial literacy. And maybe someone else goes, you know, 45 now, I always wanted to have a university education. Where do I start? And my sense is that one of the biggest challenges for women, and particularly, I would say, in racialized communities, the Black communities, are the lack of that social capital and those people to kind of take you by the hand and say, oh, what do you want to do? This is what you want to do? Oh, go here, try this, meet this person. So it's a combination of more systems, I think, that are designed for people who are not my kid. And and as well as, you know, taking advantage of the stuff you talked about earlier, which is the social capital, because that is what makes the world go round. Sorry, that's, you know, I'm a professor, I talk a lot.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Nadine and Crystal, how do we affirm ourselves and other women in, you know, the professional space?
Yeah, I'll just jump on. And Wendy, thank you so much. I really loved what you had to say, because I completely agree with a lot of your points. I come at from the sense of, you know, I really struggled in school. So I had kind of the opposite experience where my sister was quite gifted and brilliant. And unfortunately, I didn't get those genes to the same level. But, you know, something, you know, just in the spirit of Mother's Day, my mother, you know, she'd never really look at my grades. She would look at the bottom where it said you get the your attitude, right? So was it needs improvement, developing, or like satisfactory, G's, or excellent? She's like, that's your effort. So if your effort is all E's and G's and you're getting a C, to me, you've done your best, you've showed up. And I grew up with so I was on the individual education plan. I'm trying to remember what the acronyms were back in elementary school, but essentially I had a learning disability. And, you know, with that came, you know, a lot of hardships within the education system itself, because when I wanted to, you know, check off academic courses, because I knew that to get to university, you have to take academic courses, and then there's applied, and then there's essential. And so my grandfather would always say, you're going to go to university, you're going to go to university. He was an engineer, and he, you know, they lived close to, my aunt and him lived close to York University. Like, you're going to go to York University, and you'll live with us. And so I put academic on everything, but because I was in IEP, they had moved all my academic courses and put me into essential. And I couldn't even take French in grade 9. They're like, no, you can't take French. You won't be able to do it. And, you know, for me, that was really hard, because I believed that I believed in what my grandfather said, and I believed in myself. I had that efficacy of like, I'm going to work really hard now. I really want to go to university. But the education system itself and what it tells us, and the teachers, the guidance counselors, like everyone was saying no. And like, I had to fight really hard at a young age. And I think it's what made me so resilient today is people will always say no, right? but you have to believe in yourself to push forward. And really, it was extremely difficult, I think, for me, because they call my mom, and then, you know, my mom wasn't really able to kind of make that decision. I told you she had a cerebral palsy. And so then they called my aunts, like everyone in my family, and they're like, well, because I was fighting at the school, I'm like, I want to take academic, and I'd go to the principal's office, like, switch me, and they're like, you can't. And then eventually, like, because I kept going in every day, the principal said, okay, listen, if you impress us in essential courses, we'll put you into applied. And so what I did in grade 9, I took essential, got straight A's. And then in grade 10, they let me go into all applied. And then I also knew that grade 11 and grade 12 are the really important years. So then I got straight, literally, I didn't have a social life in high school. I was like in the library, I was like butt kissing all my teachers and, like, you know, talking to my guidance counselor every week. And then when it came to grade 11, I had to fight again, because it was, you had missed too much in grade 9 and 10 in fundamentals, you're not going to do well in academic. And because, like, I had been starting this journey in grade 9 and 10, you know, they really were like, okay, fine, we'll let you take academic. Let's see how you do in the first semester. It was hard, but because, and again, I hate to say that I'm not gifted intellectually, but it was the effort and the attitude that I showed up, and that resiliency to keep trying to do better. And so I ended up getting A's in academic classes as well, because I put in the work. I would go and get extra help after class or during lunch times, and people saw the attitude, and really, really, that is so important with work ethic as well. And so, you know, fast forward into like grade 12, I graduated with all these great awards for most improved students. They took me out of, again, it's really hard to do this as well, but within the system, I ended up getting out of IEP in grade 11, and they don't, like, the system or schools usually don't want to do that, because there's like a lot of hierarchy around, like, the more IEP students, potentially you get more staff, all these things, but they did pull me out of it. So these are things that, you know, I'm proud of, because I was the only one that believed in myself. And again, my grandfather obviously too, but it took a lot. And I think I was really exhausted at the end. And then, you know, but I was able to do it. And I think when it came to jobs, I started to, you know, think about going into human resources, and the same sort of people, naysayers were like, oh, you're just getting out of school. There's no way you're going to get into HR. We hire knowledge workers in corporate offices. You have to work 3 to 5 years somewhere else. It's the same sort of like kind of pushback of, no, you probably won't get it. And that was something that, you know, it always happens, right? Especially like when you're trying to move up, or you're trying to, like, you know, get into these positions of impact and influence. There's always going to be people who will think you're not ready, and that's the reality. But because, you know, what I can say is, if you show up and you have that resiliency, you believe in yourself, you have high self-efficacy, you will get there. Trust me. I am, again, living proof of someone that really, really struggled in school, had a learning disability, but it you know, like Wendy said, education and all those things will get you so far, but hard work and your attitude will get you further. And that self-efficacy piece, because self-confidence, again, is really, really important. I'm telling you now, like, I've had imposter syndrome my entire life. The positions I've been afforded, you know, I'm a senior manager at a bank, and I'm only 29 years old. Like, I'm the youngest person on my team, but like, I can't reinforce this enough. It's hard work. And the fact that I believe I can do it and I show up every day has, you know, I've been afforded this opportunity, but I also got there myself. So again, always believe in yourself. You will get there. And I know that, you know, there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. That's the beauty of life. But I know I'm really hopeful that if you keep that inner voice and you keep listening to that inner voice, you will get there.
Now, Nadine, I don't want to cut you off, but I think, Crystal, we have about 10 minutes left, and the time goes by.
I know, but I have to share mine. And I promise you I'll be quick. I promise you I'll be quick. I love this. So, you know, I was a different kind of learner. I've always been a different learner. And, you know, you never want to look up my transcripts. my marks. You know, they're okay. But I'm from the school of de Bono. So when I first got to York University and I read about Edward de Bono and the girl in the Pebble story, and I know, Wendy, you've heard about my girl in the Pebble story. It's about this young woman who was very beautiful, and her father owed a credit lender a lot of money, and the credit lender saw this beautiful woman and wanted her, and so he struck a deal with the her father that he's going to put 2 pebbles in a bag, and he's going to let fate decide. If she pulls out the white pebble, she will be free and the debt will be absolved and all will be well. However, if she pulls out the black pebble, then her father would go to prison, right? And so the girl notices when he was putting the pebble in the bag that he put in 2 black pebbles. 2 black pebbles, her fate is decided. Whatever, she can't call him out and say, hey, you're a cheater. And so she thought, everybody, you know, that's it. But she puts her hand in the bag and pulls out a pebble. And before she can open her hand to reveal the pebble, she falls on the ground and she goes, oh, I'm so clumsy. And the man says, oh, you're such a clumsy idiot. And she says, it's okay, it's okay. We will know what pebble I've chosen by what's left in the bag. And so because there was 1 black pebble in the bag, obviously she's chosen the white pebble and she's now free, right? And, you know, the man isn't going to say he cheated. What's wrong with that story is that, you know, the black pebble was the bad pebble. Well, anyway, that's another thing that Edward de Bono has to change. Yes. But in that study, we learned what lateral thinking is. And I recognized for the first time in my life why I was a different learner. I'm a lateral thinker. When I approach problems and I look at things in school, I never took what was given. I always had the alternate solution, which was never in the books. It was never in the books. So when I met Bob Davis at York University and he gave me A+ on my essay, Bob Davis recognized the kind of learner that I was. And I flew after that, because I realized that my perspective was a different perspective. And if I was an educator, I would really want to change curriculum. So all these students that think they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, all of that, because they didn't get an A, that they are lateral thinkers, and that we need to be able to have curriculum that recognizes that kind of thinking. And my mother recognized that very early in me, because she said, Nadine, your mind thinks not like everybody else's. And she said, you should be a lawyer. And I was on my way to be a lawyer, but you know, I became a businesswoman and I like that a lot better.
And we're so thankful.
Yeah. So that's, yeah.
No, fantastic. Thank you. You've all dropped some gems, and you know, we have about 6-7 minutes left, and I want to really ask 2 questions because in our last conversation, we were talking, the last bit of the conversation, we we're talking, how do we get there? And the question I have for you is, now we're there. We've done all the work to get to the position of leadership, of prominence in our careers. And there are expectations about how women should lead, expectations about how racialized women should lead. How do we keep those positions? And how do we be effective as leaders? And I also want you to think about that in terms of the work you do around diversity, because we know we want to get us at the table, women and racialized women, but there isn't a lot of conversation about how do we become effective at the table and how do we stay at the table.
I'll start. You know, my first flippant response is, you know, steel fist, silk glove. But no, it's showing up. I think, you know, one of the things that we as women have to do is we have to show up, and don't be afraid to show up. Sometimes things aren't always perfect. Look at Wendy, here she is. She thought it was at noon. A lot of people would have just not bothered coming, right? But we have to show up. And I've seen that so many times. And when I mentor and coach women, I say all the time, don't be afraid, show up. And because it is when you show up, the opportunity happens. And if you do not show up, you will have missed out on that opportunity. And to take a risk. Take a risk, always take the risk, because if you don't take the risk, you will never learn. But if you take the risk and it doesn't work out, you will learn. And there's always value in learning. And when you're in a space, look around and bring others in.
Yeah, I'll just jump on, Nadine, completely agree. I would say, Oh my goodness, I had three things and they just all disappeared from my brain. Need another coffee. I think it's important to challenge the status quo and push the envelope forward. Know your audience is extremely important as well. I always joke around, depending on who I'm talking to, your persona may change because people will only see you and interpret you if they can resonate with you to some degree. So it's important to do that research of emotional intelligence and that organizational behavior. So for me, I know it's really important to mentor young Indigenous youth, and as well as racialized groups. But I think asking for things that you want is really important because nobody really knows unless you ask or you tell them. So you don't want to blindside, your managers, anyone that you're working with. So just remember to ask, but also know, that the worst thing that could happen is they can say no. But more times than not, anytime I've asked, it's usually 85% are yeses. And if someone does give you a no, it's a no, but with a caveat that let's get you there. If it's not now, it's in a couple of months, it's maybe in a year. So I'd say it's really important to ask for what you want.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Wendy?
I think, a lot's been said. You talked about the imposter syndrome. This is an unpopular way to look at it perhaps, but, men will apply for jobs when they have 50% of the qualifications. Women have 100% of the qualifications and still have to be tapped on the shoulder. That whole notion that women don't ask, I think is so deeply embedded in our culture that, we're all trained, not me personally, but most women are trained to think they have to be perfect and so on and so forth. So I agree 100% that learning how to ask, and it's a different kind of muscle because you have to learn how to ask in a way that is going to get you what you want. And what I would say is one of the challenges a lot of women, young women especially, have is understanding context, because sexism, racism, anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism are baked into our systems. There is no question. Women are held to a higher standard, and then if you have other dimensions, you're held to a higher and higher and higher standard. We have to accept, in my view, that the system doesn't work for me or actually anybody on this call. And one of the biggest challenges in becoming successful, as opposed to being defeated by the system, is figuring out how hard to push or where the cracks may be in the glass ceiling, as opposed to charging head on. And I'm not good at, I'm the last person, it's another one of those, do what I say, not what I do, because I lack the emotional intelligence sometimes to navigate those barriers. But that is one of the things that I see a lot of young women really getting crushed by, is that they have the confidence, they want to change the system, but they don't actually have the political smarts to figure out how to do it without getting crushed. And so I think we have to work together to, I have friends who are very focused on systems change, and I think it's absolutely critical. And anyone who knows me knows I spend a lot of time doing that. But until the revolution, we're stuck in a system that doesn't work for us. And so understanding the unspoken rules and how to be more successful and how to support each other and how to navigate is actually, in my view, what we have to figure out, because some people err on the side of not trying to ask for what they want or to create change. But I would argue that others come on too strong, and the system protects the system. So we
Yes,
have to find ways to do both at the same time.
You know, thank you for raising that point, because I think we can often individualize the challenges we're facing, forgetting that there's some systemic barriers and constraints that we have to work against, really make our professional capacities you know, constrained in particular ways. I know we're a minute over, but I want to end on sort of a higher note, if we could. You are all accomplished women. You are very engaged in your professional lives, and you are committed to volunteerism and to building community. As you think about your legacy, and I know you're all very far from the end, but as you think about the work you do and the legacy you would like to leave, what is the one thing you would like to leave our guests with? What do you think your legacy could be? The biggest tip you'd like us to take away from our conversation today? And maybe Crystal, okay.
Oh, sorry, I self-selected myself.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
I would say, you know, something that I'm working on a lot is representation on boards. I just recently took an appointment at a hospital board, and I'm so thankful and humbled by the opportunity. And, I shake my head that we're, 2021, and we still have, corporate boards everywhere. There is no representation of Indigenous and Black women on so many of I can't say North America, but within Canada, that's where I've been focusing and really looking at it. We don't have representation of women, and when we do, it's 1 or 2 seats, and even then, they're primarily white women. And I just shake my head at that, and that's something I want to solve for in my lifetime. And so, what I can say is for anyone on the call, is that the experiences and the networks I've been able to obtain from board positions has been, astronomical in terms of how I've been able to navigate my career, my professional development, my personal development. So my thing to, leave with is, take an opportunity to maybe join a board, learn about an organization. Governance is really important because, they are usually volunteered positions, unless you go, and again, it takes a long time to get into paid corporate remuneration boards, but it's so self-fulfilling, and I've learned almost, I could say, equally is what I've learned in my professional into these volunteer experiences on boards. So I would say that's one caveat, that I would love to see more board representation. I believe anyone on the call, audience-wise, it might be an opportunity to develop and grow within your own personal and professional lives.
Thank you. Wendy?
I agree with the issues around representation and leadership for sure. I guess for me, because I do believe in the power of education, it's finding those alternative pathways. One of the things I'm proudest of at Ryerson was when I was an associate dean, I created a program for mid-career academics. 20 people got PhDs, and one of the guys was 60 when he was defending his proposal. I don't think everyone has to have a PhD, but I do think pathways to education and employment and working toward learning and so on. I've just seen the costs of people who are underutilized, underemployed, and underpaid. And so I think that's, that's probably, I do a lot of things, but that's probably the thing that I'm most focused on now. And so as penance for being so late, I did put my email in the chat, and anybody who wants advice, ask, and I will respond.
No, great, thank you. And Nadine, final thoughts to you.
Yeah, many years ago, I was part of a United Nations project called Education for All. And so when you asked me this question when I was 19, I would say education for all. And then I added the caveat to all Black women, because I saw in my own life what that meant. But now, the legacy that I want to leave is entrepreneurship for all. All women, Black women specifically, because the research shows, I've talked about, we just did this one of the largest study of Black entrepreneurs, the Rise Up Pitch Competition, and it shows the challenges and how Black women are impacted. And as you all know my story, I became a businesswoman at the age of 12 when that first 2 50-cent coin landed in the middle of my hand, and I felt what it was like to make money and the freedom and the liberation that came with that, and just the ability to enable so many things in my life. And now I see the ability to enable a culture of women, of Black people, of other disadvantaged people, a path for their own success and the success of their future and their children through entrepreneurship. For me, it's a legacy that's the hill that I know that I'll die on. As my treasurer always says, Black people shouldn't die in their sleep. We should die fighting. And so the work that I currently do, even as president of the BBPA, the time in my company, and the work that we do with the Black Entrepreneurship Program, and the many different associations and affiliations that I participate in with. And I have to say the two most recent things that I'm the most proud of is the Rise Up Pitch Competition and the Boss Women Entrepreneurship Training Program, because again, we are working together to enable a future for our people through entrepreneurship. And that's why this financial literacy program is so important, because if we don't know how to manage the money, we're not going to have anything for ourselves or for our children or for our community. So we have to do that. We have to be intentional, and we have to be formulaic and structured around that. And so that is the legacy that I continue to work for. And I thank people like Wendy, who is a huge part of that. And I thank you, Crystal, and for all the people that is on this journey with this legacy that I'm building.
Great. Thank you so much, Nadine. I think we could just end there. No wrap-ups needed. But thank you so very much to our speakers, Nadine Spencer, Crystal Abatasawe, and Wendy Sukie. This was a wonderful dialogue, so short. I feel like we need to have several parts to continue what we've started today. So thank you very much for your time and the gems that you have shared with us. Thank you to all those in attendance to be out on a Saturday morning. I know there are other things you could be doing, including sleeping. So thank you for sharing your time with us. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. Some of you are mothers, some of you are engaged in mothering. So please celebrate the mothers and the other mothers in your life. We know mothering is a 365-day job. So tomorrow is just a nod to the special women in our lives. Thank you so much again for joining us. And we have a community space that happens right after this, where we're going to talk about the cohort for this year and the financial literacy training that we will be doing. So momentarily, Michael Pinnock, who's the treasurer of the BBPA, will join us to talk about that. So thank you very much again to our speakers. And if you could give us 15 more minutes of your time, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Tika. And I'm glad you segue with that, because I sit here and I'm so proud at so many different levels. On a family level, I'm absolutely proud as to how the program was hosted and moderated, and the kinds of questions that was asked, and I just think to myself, one of the first things I'd like to see, big thank you to the mothers. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. And as you have mentioned, that is why we chose to have this special forum on this Saturday to honor the mothers and to hear from the mothers and the mothers of the village. And I think we have done a supreme job. I would also like to thank the fathers who are on and the male who are on this chat today, because even as we speak and we talk about the structural challenges and the deficiencies, we do have it in our own culture. And so, I'm so happy that men choose to be on what they may conceive as a women forum, because, the population is still 50-50. Contrary to what we may believe, the world is still divided. 50% is women and 50% is men. And we have to bring both parties together to make that revolution that Wendy speak about. It won't happen by just men trying to do it. We have found in areas where we bring the women on board, where we accept what they bring to the table. it does make a difference, fundamental difference in what we do. So I just like to say that too. As Crystal mentioned, that she was the first in her family to, I think, get college and university and so on. And that is a popular theme in our community. There are a lot of firsts, and sometimes only. And as we pivot to do our next cohort, reflecting on a word that Wendy mentioned, that it's not just who you know, but what you know. We have recognized that in the BBPA for some time now, especially in the environment in which we work. The what you know is important. It might not necessarily be the leveling factor for the gender at this stage and so on. But if you don't have a ticket, you don't have a chance. And so the ticket that we're bringing to the table is to bring our understanding up to snuff on how the system works in a fundamental sense. It's good to have a ton load of social capital, but it will take you thus far. And so, as you mentioned, the fundamental skills, the pathway, the unspoken rules, and investment in training and education, and definitely the confidence. I grew up with a father, my Mother's Day celebration is my father who's been deceased 21 years now. Because I didn't grow with a mother per se, I grew with a father. And so I got the father who mothered me. And so if I was to give you my Mother's Day story, it would be the things my father said. And one of them that resonated with me a lot is anybody can sell, because he used to run a little tavern, a little village bar, and he was contented with turning over 3 crates of beer for the week, and he's okay. But he was very adamant that anyone could sell. It's the collecting that is important. Yep. So when you decide to go around the bar to assist him, the first thing he'll ask you, did you collect for that goods you just sell? He's not concerned about all the beer you're opening and distributing, but did you collect? So that is something that resonated with me in the finance world, that, when you do what you do, collecting the money is very important, and collecting the right sum of money, very, very important. So as we pivot into our next cohort, which is next week, Saturday, and for 12 weeks after that, for a 12-week session, we're going to go into the fundamentals. And we have been able to secure 3 PhDs from York University in the Schulich School of Business. And the first 4 weeks we'll be spending on economics. The second 3 weeks we'll be spending on marketing. And the final 5 weeks we'll be spending on accounting. And we will take it to whatever level folks want. In fact, the econ lecturer is already suggesting that we get a textbook and get it out to the folks if they want to read. And here is the opportunity for those who have never gotten a chance to probably go to college or university, or even if they didn't get a chance to do these subjects. I think Crystal was what does Pains explain to us the challenges she had in those years when she was growing up, going to high school and so on. But here's an opportunity to be lectured, to be taught, to be trained by people who you have to pay good money and have good qualification to get into the university. And they're going to give of themselves, their time and their effort over the next 12 weeks to bring to us economics, the fundamental and the application, marketing, the fundamental and the application, and accounting. 3 PhD would make themselves available. So we're looking forward to see the hundreds of folks who normally turn up on a Saturday, and to get the know what you know. This is the what you know now. We have got who you know, and we have got the social capital and so on. Let's get to what we know and the fundamentals. And as you mentioned, Wendy, the finance beat the heck out of you, but you know it's very important to have it. The econ, the marketing, the accounting, those are the 3 key pillars on which we will speak the language of business, and we will be able to take our place at that table. So looking forward to see you guys next week, and thanks for listening to me.
Great, thank you so much, Michael. And perhaps we can invite some questions. I know our panel discussion ended, but if there are any questions about the next 12 weeks of our programming and what it will entail, we can take those. You can just raise your hands or post your question in the chat.
I think Sylvia's hand is up.
Yeah, it was like a waving hand.
Okay.
No, I was raising my hand, and I was trying to type. So I'm just still trying to be clear about. So is this like a program that we can sign on for, and we do work along the way, or is it something we come on to and we observe and kind of learn that way, like, or something in between?
Well, for the program is similar to how we run our programs on the Saturdays.
Okay.
We're going to send the link out, and folks are going to join us and going to participate. But the econ lecturer was suggesting, and she's identify a book, and we could do the book through Kindle. I think there's a way where we buy the license and we send it out to participants, and you download it on your computer and you read the chapters. So it can go multiple ways. It can go the way where there's a lecture and there's a question and answer at the end. It can also go where you can read, like you're actually sitting in a university class getting lectures, and go along with the program. But everyone is welcome to join. And I suspect the effort you put in, as the leaders have been talking about, don't limit yourself. Whatever effort you put in is what you'll probably get out. So for those who may want to get the text, we'll get the text to them. For those who just probably want to just listen and take notes, that is fine as well.
And it's the same time frame as now?
Yes, it's got, and we're gonna, this one gonna be for 1 hour dose. We're gonna go precisely for an hour. The lecture is 45 minutes a lecture, 15 minutes a question on the lecture itself, and the assignment, etc. And then we'll move the next half an hour into our other space. And it's gonna be like this for the next 12 sessions. The first 4 will be on econ, the next 3 will be on marketing, and the final 5 will be on accounting.
Okay.
We want to bring the university to the folks in a practical way that it's fun, and they're also able to understand what they need to do in the real world.
Great. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Marlene had their hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you there, Tika. I was asking about if it's pre-recorded, because some people might learn differently. I really do appreciate the textbook, so we can read ahead of time. And I know for our cohorts, because we're learning fundamentals, we might be inundated with a lot of questions. So if there's any chance it could be pre-recorded, and so we get more out of it by, the speaker cementing or clarifying, so because it's 1 hour, so we want to, as Michael said, maximize the hour so we get as much as we can from it. And I thank you, Michael. Thank you for doing this. When I came onto the BPA, I recognized we need fundamentals. It's not what you do, but how, why, and why you do what you do. So thank you, BPA. Thank you.
And just to try to answer your question, I think at this stage, I think what we can do, because we do record the sessions. Yes. So we'll have them recorded, and then they're available for you guys to go over in, as long as you want. The pre-recording might be a little challenge, because that might mean new negotiations and new approaches. Currently, what we'll do, Dr. Irene, I can't remember the surname right now, will be on next week. Okay. She'll be the first player on, and we will record that session, and then that session will be made available online so people can go back and see what we did. So that may help you for those who want to go back and kind of do a revision. We should have that available online.
And the books, you say ebook, so how you will get some?
Well, that one we are working on the logistics. So the first person, let me just get it. So Irene Enriquez, Dr. Irene Enriquez will be the first person on. No, she recommend a book called Naked Economics, and I think it's available through Amazon, through the Kindle system. So we at the BBPA, we are working on the logistics of doing that. But one thing that had come up at our attention at the time was we would buy it for whoever is going to be online. It's then sent out via email. You download, I think, the Kindle program for free, and then you download the textbook.
Perfect.
And then you have that to do your stuff.
Love it. Thank you, Michael.
And she had actually wanted us to do it before she turned up.
Yes, I was thinking.
She wanted chapters 1 to 3 come next week, Saturday. So we'll see what we can do during the week.
All right. Thank you for that. Blessing. Yes.
Thank you. There's some other questions for you, Michael. Is there a certificate at the end of the program?
We can do that. In fact, that is something we want to do. But we have to run it a little different. Wendy is the expert here, and she'll tell you when you do certificates and you want it to really have value. There are certain things you put to, like people have to attend at least 80% of the sessions. There may be a simple little quiz, couple of questions just to ensure that people were paying attention and so on. But we definitely can have something like a certificate of participation or something like that indicate that you're a part of it. But that is what we really want to do. But it's not in this one as we speak. But that is something we definitely want to do, that when we deliver these fundamental programs, people have a takeaway and they can put it in their, as one of their trophies. I survived 12 weeks of fundamentals, and that is so. The answer is yes, that's what we want to do. I will explore it as we proceed.
Fantastic. And final question is, are you envisioning this program to help people who are particularly interested in starting or running businesses, or is this a general sort of education program?
Well, because education is so pervasive, it will help you in running your personal life, your business life, whatever you want to do. It is the fundamentals of what we call the free market economy that we live in. When I was much younger, they called it capitalism outright. They don't bother use that word no more. They say it's a free market economy. So it will satisfy all 3 areas that you just mentioned. General education, specific for your business, because accounting and the marketing, for example, definitely will be tailored to, what are the things you need to know when you're running a business. When somebody see a balance sheet, what does that mean? What are the elements that you find on that, and how those elements interact with what you're doing? So the answer is yes to all of the above.
Great. And so just to reiterate, the book is called Naked Economics.
Yes, that's the one to recommend.
First textbook. Yes, please visit bbpa.org. We will post that again in the chat to register for the upcoming sessions and to find out some other information about the program. Please note that the recording from today, but also our previous community space sessions are and will be posted on the website. So if you miss a session or you miss the content while you're in a session, please note that the videos will be available to you thereafter. I think we're at 11:25.
Yes, it's Victoria now.
One of the things we do want folks to know, and I'll reiterate, the program itself is 10 to 11:30. Our goal is to start right at 10. Make sure the education component wraps up at 11, and then the last half an hour of our programming is dedicated to a much more informal sort of open conversation and dialogue. If you are a business owner or you have an event or an opportunity, information you'd like to share with the community space, that last half an hour is an opportunity for you to do so. What we ask is that you email the BBPA prior to the Saturday if you'd like to present, and they can make the arrangements for you to be able to do that. So just note that this space is also a community resource for you in that way. Thank you so very much again for joining us today. Thank you to our 3 wonderful panelists for the great conversation we had, Nadine, Crystal, and Wendy. I know they have posted their contact information or their details in the chat. So if you'd like to reach out to them thereafter, you're certainly welcome to do so. And we hope to see you next week. And you can't see her, but thank you to Victoria, who manages sort of the tech stuff behind the scene and keep us going. So thank you very much, Victoria. And over to you to close us out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. For scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I feel so good. I feel so good.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.